And let me tell you something. When people are envious of you, they will work night and day to destroy you. Envy is an irredeemable characteristic. It makes you like a Satan. You smile, but you don't mean it. You sit down at the table of somebody that you envy, but you're plotting against them all the while. That is in every organization. It's right here at Malcolm X College. Is that right? You don't have to bear me witness. I know it's here because black folk are here. The human condition is here. I ain't asking you to tell me nothing. I already know. If you sing too good, somebody gonna hate your voice. If you play basketball too good, if you come here in less than a...
And I'm going to share something with you about with Louis Farrakhan, that he knew that Elijah Muhammad, out of his own mouth, he knew that Elijah Muhammad was having sex with underage and teenage secretaries. You can do it. And I'm going to share something with you about with Louis Farrakhan, that he knew that Elijah Muhammad, out of his own mouth, he knew that Elijah Muhammad was having sex with underage and teenage secretaries.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And yet men and black men in our community call him a leader. And it's just beyond me how it's not the white man's fault. We got to get rid of the poison that's in our water. But anyways, I'm going to keep on playing this. And I'm going to prove to you that this is correct. Watch the comment section of this video. I'm hating. So we devalue women's lives to be part of a group to protect a man like Brother Polite, to protect a man like Elijah Muhammad. But let's watch this.
1963, Malcolm X learned that Elijah Muhammad himself had repeatedly committed adultery with some of his teenage secretaries and had children with them. Malcolm agonized over his discovery, and in June of 1964, he told me about it.
And he called some of these women who were living in Los Angeles at the time and let me listen to the conversation. And it became apparent that he was telling the truth. He told you about that, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Let's rewind it again, man.
Now, where in that clip did the minister admit that Malcolm told him that they were teenage secretaries? Where in that clip did the minister admit to that?
And because let's watch it again.
Let's
keep on watching.
Elijah Muhammad himself had repeatedly committed adultery with some of his teenage secretaries and had children with them. Malcolm agonized over his discovery, and in June of 1964, he told me about it.
And he called some of these women who were living in Los Angeles at the time and let me listen to the conversation. And it became apparent that he was telling the truth. He told you about that, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Mike Wallace never even asked the minister if they were teenage secretaries, for the minister even to admit to that. So look at the deception and manipulation.
Let's watch it one more time.
Malcolm X learned that Elijah Muhammad himself had repeatedly committed adultery with some of his teenage secretaries and had children with them. Malcolm agonized over his discovery, and in June of 1964, he told me about it.
And he called some of these women who were living in Los Angeles at the time and let me listen to the conversation. And it became apparent that he was telling the truth. He told you about that, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Now you see something. Now you see now. You done fucked up, you know that, don't you?
I see.
You know what I'm saying?
I thought.
That's what, you know what I'm saying? You done fucked up now, you know that, don't you?
Now, I hope you all are paying attention to the manipulation and the deception. Fred is trying to manipulate the minister's words using this Mike Wallace interview. But if you pay attention closely to the clip or segment that he played at a 60-minute show, then you can obviously see where Mike Wallace is narrating the show and he's referring to them young girls as teenage secretaries. And then it goes to a clip in the interview with the minister asking the minister, did Malcolm ever mention the Honorable Elijah Muhammad having more than one wife? But never in that clip did Mike Wallace ask the minister that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had teenage secretaries. You never see the minister agreeing to that, right? So it was not only manipulation on Fred's part, but it was also manipulation on Mike Wallace's part. But the minister's position has always been the same. And here's the proof.
I'm a Muslim. And when Malcolm was silenced, it was Louis X that was called. And that night, Malcolm came and got me after I spoke. And we went home and had dinner together. And it was at the table that night that Malcolm broke the story to me of the wives of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he didn't say to me, young girlfriend, he knew the language to use because the language is in the Bible and in the Quran. He said wives. He said, what do you think, Louis? I said, well, I was really stunned, shocked. I said, well, I think that there's no God but Allah. That's all I could say, and Muhammad is his messenger. And Malcolm took me to the airport, and I got on a flight and got back to Boston. The next morning, 5 a.m., Malcolm called. He told me on the way to the airport, he said, now don't tell anybody what I said, what I've told you. And I said, well, no, I'm not going to tell anybody but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And 5 a.m. the next morning, he called me, and he said, Brother Louis, I would like you to give me some time and allow me to write the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and explain. I said, well, brother, I said, what you told me got my mind so messed up, it's going to take me some time to frame the letter. So if you can get your letter off in that time, that's good. I said, I don't want to be caught in between two powerful men. He said, well, brother, he said, there's only one powerful man. I said, well, brother, you're right. That was called to New York to speak on that next Sunday in Malcolm's place. And after I spoke, Malcolm came to the mosque and picked me up and drove me to his house where I had dinner. Betty Shabazz fixed the dinner. Malcolm and I were sitting in the dining room by ourselves. And during the dinner, Malcolm told me about Elijah Muhammad's domestic life. And he asked me, after he told me that Elijah Muhammad had fathered these children, he said, what do you think about it? I said, brother, I think that there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. Malcolm took me to the airport, and these are the words he said to me. He said, Brother Louis, he said, I wish that you wouldn't tell anybody what I said to you today. I said, no, sir, I'm not going to tell anybody but the messenger. Now, Malcolm taught me how to respect the messenger. And when Malcolm deviated from the messenger, as much as I loved him, I could not walk with him because that man is the father of us all. And I looked at Malcolm as my brother, my friend, and my teacher, but don't go against our father. So the next morning, I'm back in Boston. Malcolm calls me at 5 a.m. time for prayer. And he said, brother, I wish you would give me some time so I can get a letter off to the messenger explaining why I said what I said to you. I said, well, brother, it's going to take me some time to get my head together to write him. So if in that time you can write him and explain yourself, you do that. But I don't want to get involved in no dispute between two powerful persons. He said, well, brother, there's only one powerful man, and that's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I said, I'm aware of that. My wife sleeps. She don't know what's going on. I can't sleep because my head is messed up. You telling me that the fountainhead of my righteousness now has fathered children from some of the sisters. I'm upset. I get up and I sit down and I open my Quran. And I open the Holy Quran to the 33rd chapter and I start reading, and it talks about the wives of Muhammad and how the missionaries called Muhammad a voluptuary. They started slandering him because of his wives. I called Malcolm back immediately and said, Malcolm, I found something. I gotta show you. He said, well, come on. At that time, you could go from Boston to New York for $14 on the airplane. I spent my last $28, got on the plane and went to see Malcolm. Malcolm came, that same blue Oldsmobile that's at Malcolm X College. He came and we drove around. And I told Malcolm what I found in the Quran. And Malcolm's answer to me was, I already know that, brother. But don't you say nothing about it, because you frankly can't handle it. Let me handle that. I said, yes, sir. When Malcolm told me he knew that from the Quran, he knew how to defend the position of his teacher. But when, after the 90 days was up, the teacher put him out because he was going to various ministers telling them about the messenger's domestic life.
And the last point the minister just made proves exactly what I've been telling y'all, that Malcolm was put out indefinitely for slack talking and gossiping about the messenger's domestic life. The minister just proved what I've been saying all along.
That's when the messenger put him out. The hypocrites, the disbelievers, the enemies, the devils, all united to kill Muhammad. And it was in that same chapter that Muhammad's 9 wives are mentioned. Now, if Malcolm truly didn't like the fact that Elijah Muhammad had wives, and Malcolm knew that they were not just his secretaries, they were his wives, because he and I discussed it. But when he came before the world in his anger against his teacher, he wanted to anger you and turn you against Elijah Muhammad. So he said Elijah Muhammad had sex with his teenage secretaries, knowing that that would inflame you and cause you to think that this man was a false man and an abuser of women.
So I'm showing y'all proof that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's position has always been the same and has never changed. I just showed you 3 different moments and instances where the minister is saying the same exact thing. His position never changed. And Brother Minister Malcolm never told the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that these were teenage secretaries. That's something that he did in the media to Mike Wallace and Cupsonet and others.